So I cut my hand, dropped my chain, my computer kept freezing, and I forgot to record the first ascent up the New York KOM. So this is how today went. All right, so this is the Everything Bagel stage of Zwift Racing League, the hardest stage by far. And of course, in the pursuit of trying to manage everything, I end up forgetting to start my recording. And so I ended up starting it. I ended up noticing that I wasn't recording right after we started this descent down the New York KOM. And so as you can see here, we got a small group of people that kind of came together. And at one point, it felt like we had like a representative from every team because it was just a handful of us. And so we got the main pack right in front of us, probably close to 30, maybe a little less than 30 riders. You see one guy bridge there up front. And we're, pushing the pace a little bit hard so we can kind of keep with that momentum. I'm doing my best to recover after that climb because what you saw in the beginning in terms of me getting over the top in 25th place, I was actually in probably second place when I got to that last little kicker before the KOM, and then I just gassed out. My legs were sore, absolutely hurting from Monday's race. And so as we continue to push the pace forward here, you see, I'm continuously getting into the 300s, really push to bridge that gap. And what you didn't see there, because it went by so quickly, is my computer froze for a second. And that happened to me all night. So this is, one of a handful of problems that happened the entire night. Computer kept freezing, dropped my chain, um, and just super annoying little issues. And so take a quick shot of ketone IQ, drink some water, because I knew that my strategy going into this was it takes about 15 minutes for the ketone IQ to kick in. And because it takes about 15 minutes, I want to, kind of plan it to get ahead of the second KOM. So that way I'm still in the middle of its benefits while I'm going to the second KOM. So again, you see here the computer freezes for quite a bit longer, and I am doing my best to kind of pedal through that because I don't know what's happening, and I don't know, like I see it freeze, but I hear the music still. I feel the resistance in my trainer, so I know that I'm moving. It's just not effective. So as the group comes back together here, we're coming, through around to the sprint. At this point, I decided to, so before I started the race, I tested out the lightweight Meilenstein wheels with the Pinarello in several different Robo Pacer rides. And the reason why I did that was because I wasn't sure what kit I wanted to go with. My focus was getting over the climbs, and I knew if I can get over the climbs well, then I can, have enough energy for the sprints. And so the first KOM really only took me a few minutes. And like I was, I didn't know this at the time because I wasn't monitoring my actual like time over top of the KOM. But the first KOM took me 3 minutes, 17 seconds, which is a new PR for me. And, that extra time that I saved gave me time to not only, rest on the group, but also give me a little extra energy for pushes like this to go through this sprint. And as you'll see, I'll, basically hold on to the group for a little bit, back off, and then launch my sprint. I'm holding, in the 700s to get a decent rate. I thought I could do a little bit better, but I ended up in 15th place, which obviously for FTS means nothing. And so at that point, once I knew that I wasn't going to be competitive FTS wise, at least I didn't think I was, then I just, did my best to stay with the group. And so, like I was saying earlier, I tested the Meilensteins with the Robo Pacers just to see how it felt staying with the group. Like, was it hard? Was it easy? Was I going to be doing a lot of pushing and surging, because I kept falling off the back and catching up? And the reality is I actually did well. Like, I held on pretty well. The Obviously the climbing benefits in a stage like this where we probably spend more time going uphill than we do downhill, especially the second half of the stage. Those glass roads are not flat and they're mostly uphill, and it feels like uphill both ways, kind of scenario. And so I start to fall a little bit off the back of the group here, mainly because I'm not paying attention. Computer freezes again, and I just put a quick dig so I can get back into the group. I didn't realize that I went through the banner without even so much as considering using my feather, because I would have had I think most people got the anvil on this one, maybe. And so I just held on to my feather. I saw that I still had it, so I just left it there. I didn't want to waste it, and possibly get something I didn't need. And so as we continue through the city here, it really, at this point, my focus is staying with the group. Can we push the pace? We're not that far from the main group ahead of us. We're only about 18 seconds, from the next, core little group, and then, maybe under a minute to the next big group. Yeah, about a minute to the next big group. That's not that long, especially with a group this size. We can push the pace and kind of keep momentum going. We're about the same size as the main pack ahead of us, and no one really wanted to work. I kept, I'd go off the front, and I'd push a little bit on the pace because that's kind of, more what I'm used to. You see there, I, push a little bit hard, a couple guys come up, and then, as I ease back, everybody else kind of eases back too. And so we all kind of come together, and we end up in that back and forth continuously. So as we go through this, steep little ramp, I want to make sure I'm carrying my momentum, through this, because if not, you end up, wasting a lot of energy, through those little tiny ramps. And so start the glass roads again, which, as many times as I watched recon rides and races today, it didn't connect in my head that little steep slope and then kind of right hand turn, led to the glass roads. And maybe it just, trying to watch this stuff while I'm working didn't help. And so as you can see there, I start, little by little falling off the back. Again, my derailer's broken. It's, well, not broken, it's not functioning properly. So I'm climbing in the 53 tooth chainring. I ended up shifting down into the 39 to see if I could kind of maintain a little bit steadier pace. I end up, at this point, I hadn't shifted yet. I'm still in the 53 tooth, but I'm starting to hurt. Like, you see, that group kind of got away from me. I end up catching up to JD, and he and I, are on comms, and we're talking and pushing each other, encouraging each other. And so, that always helps, having someone that you can, bounce, bounce encouragement and energy efforts off of, to keep you moving forward. And so we got the ATP guy that ends up pushing through me and past me. And, I thought I could, push a little bit harder just to kind of keep up, especially through this part where it's, downhill. You got enough downhill where you can kind of, you know, keep enough speed to bridge some of these small gaps. But as you see on the right hand side, the gaps are growing big time. The gaps, there are a lot of gaps, a lot of separations happening, and little pockets of groups you know, holding together. But the mass groups that we had were gone. And so right now, the main group that I was in is about 17-ish seconds ahead of me, maybe a little bit more. And so continuing to push through this part of the glass roads, as I come up over this little 8, 9, 12% hump. JD, like flies through me, which I was excited about and, praising him for, because that was a great, solid effort and, use of his momentum very well to get over that climb. And so he's, a handful of seconds in front of me. And, at this point, I'm thinking like, all right, let me get some rest while I can, but also, keep pressure on myself in order to, catch up to where JD's at, because, he and I can, push each other through the second climb, which really is the harder of the two. Because the first climb, it's, stair stepping upward, and as you saw from, my time across the line, my KOM time was a little over 3 minutes. So it's not a hard effort, not super, not super difficult. But this time around, while yes, the KOM itself is, a handful of minutes, the lead up to the KOM is really what burns you out, because you have all these steep little slopes and, hard surges. As you can see me there having to put my chain back in, because I tried switching into the 39 and it dropped immediately. So I'm still in the 39 tooth ring, and probably like 39.30, trying to climb here just to see how it feels, see if I can hold it without grinding my chain up too much, because if I go into the 39.32, the chain actually starts to rub. Um, and so as I'm climbing here, I'm feeling good about it. I feel like I can maintain it. And, we start on this next big slope, and, again, just doing my best to push. I'm having to stay in the 30, um, 39.30 or 39.28 in that arena, because it's where I felt like I could maintain a good pace. As you see, I catch up to JD and, continue to encourage him on the voice chat that we were on, as I come through, getting into this, this percentage, this 16, 17%, holding my pace. While I was at a lower RPM than I wanted to be, I felt like I held my wattage very well through the steeper parts of the climb. And again, I'm dropping into, 60 RPM, 50 RPM, and suffering through it essentially. Because at this point, my legs are, beyond pain. And so as I come up to this last little part, I saw this coalition rider and decided I'm, going to push as hard as I can through here, because I know this is a quick little steep slope. If you surge through it enough, like a sprint, then you get over top of it quickly. Computer freezes up again. And as I pass through the line, I come across in 42nd place with a time of 15-minute 18 second, or 5-minute 18 seconds, which is again another PR for me. And, I felt great. I felt great about it. Felt like it was, the best climbing that I've done in a while, outside of the grade a few days ago. And so I'm doing my best to, I use my anvil and doing my best to kind of push and get onto this group. I know that, where I'm at is not where I want to end up. I don't want to end up crossing the line in 50th place. I know there's a handful of clusters of riders ahead of me, and we've still got plenty of stage left. We got 6 kilometers left. About to hit the next sprint. I launched way too early. I didn't realize that I was so early, and I ended up gassing out as I got to the line, did a quick surge, but still managed to get a PR on this sprint and ended up in 6th place with the FTS. And if I would have paid attention better in my sprint, I could have launched as I got to the line, since I had plenty of momentum, and I would have probably did better on the FTS, which would have gave me some points, but ultimately got nothing going through the line. And so this little, cluster that we're with here, we just kind of stay together, because at this point we've got, 5 kilometers left, and, it's us three, got three behind us by a few seconds, and really only a handful of riders here and there ahead of us, but they're, 20 and 30 seconds ahead. At this point, I feel like we're not going to catch them. At least I didn't think we would, but the three of us are keeping the keeping the pressure on each other. As you can see, we're climbing this little bit at, 300, 400 watts, which at this point was the best I could muster. I am in my 53 tooth chain ring up front, After that, after the KOM, I, jump back into there so that way I can kind of keep pushing, keep pushing myself and keep a stronger pace. And so these little hills, I'm having to, I shift down a bit, but I'm still doing, 400 or 500 watts going up these little hills. And in between, just trying to hold my FTP so I can get a little bit of rest, which I know sounds crazy, but that's really how it felt is I was resting at my FTP. And, as we start to get through this slope heading down, I see the riders come up behind us and figure, okay, we got, a nice little cluster going. We got 4 riders holding it well. There's another group of 4 coming up behind us and coming up quickly too. We got, a rider ahead of us that we're starting to catch up to. And as I see the rider ahead of us, I'm thinking like, okay, we can definitely catch this, this little cluster of people. It's 2 people. So just keep the pressure on a little bit, not trying to go too fast or not trying to go too high into my FTP. As we get to this part here, I'm thinking like, you know what? I'm gonna use my feather at this point because there's really no other steep climbs left. End up using my feather to bridge to this group. And with about 1.5 to go, I decided to just keep going. Since I still had time on my feather, I just kept going and start to hit the, upper 200s, low 300s. I start looking at the group and realize they're not they're not pushing to stay with me or catch up to me or any of that. And at this point, I've got a 12-second gap. I pause for a little bit because again, I'm exhausted at this point, and then just keep going. And I decide, you know what? With a K and a half to go, I decided to just push and push and keep myself moving. Got this downhill slope here right before we hit the short incline to the finish, or short kind of flat part to the finish. And at this point, I was already, a few seconds ahead and knew that no one's going to catch me. So I just coast across the line in 43rd place, which, to say that, I wish I would have done better is an understatement. But when I looked at my power numbers, my 5-minute average was 4 watts per kilogram, which is the best that I've done it in a while. Um, it's probably been a month, maybe more, since I've done that kind of an effort. And so I was really happy to have that, 4 watts per kilogram, 5-minute power. Obviously, my, 1 minute, 15 second is typical for me in a race. My 20 minutes kind of typical for me in a race. But being, being that I went from Monday's race where we, planned some team tactics, pushed hard, left my legs super sore because again, the being in the 53 tooth chain ring to trying to climb on that ring is not easy, and it's it puts a lot of strain, and so it's a very hard effort going into this where my legs were absolutely hurting by the end of the first climb. I'm very happy with the outcome of 4 watts per kilogram in 5 minutes, which means at some point my pace group category will go up. Not sure when and how that happens, but at some point it will. But I will keep pressing forward because if you go on Zwift Power and you see the total, the guys that finished in that front group were only pushing 4.2, 4.3 watts per kilogram. So I'm not that far from that, which makes me excited because these, I was talking with JD last night about it. These ZRL races probably have the hardest competitions. FRR is difficult because the stages are difficult, but the competition is fairly even. These races, ZRL, the competition is not so even, which makes these races really hard. And so, hope that helps. Hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you guys on the next one.
Guys, Miguel, from that thing you just watched, if you know where that reference is from, please leave it down in the comments below. One of my favorite channels. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button, watch videos, playlists, whichever pop up. But thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and I hope to see you next time.